Moving on to item number 6. This should be under ordinance, consideration of rezone number 15-02 to facilitate the development of a 172 multiple family residential complex, presented by Arnoldo Rodriguez, Development Services Director for the city.
Good evening, Mayor Buckland, members of the council. Arnoldo Rodriguez, Development Services Department. The item before you tonight is a continuation. Oh, that's not going to work. It's a continuation from an item that the council considered on January the 19th. At the January the 19th meeting, the council considered a plan amendment application, a rezone application, a development plan, and an environmental assessment, which would facilitate the development of a 172-unit apartment complex located on the south side of Lincoln, just west of Garden Highway. At that meeting, the council adopted the environmental assessment, the plan amendment, and the development plan. However, the rezone application does take two meetings to adopt. So at the first meeting, we introduced it, and here we are tonight for formal adoption of the rezone application. The project site itself, and also for the benefit of the community, the site itself, it's on the south side of Lincoln Road, just west of Garden Highway, roughly 550 feet. For reference points for the community members, your typical city block is roughly about 800 feet, so that can probably give you a pretty good idea. It's just west of there. The parcel itself, it's somewhat of an odd configuration. It has very little frontage on Lincoln Avenue, so when you're driving by, it's on the south side. I would call it a fairly non-descriptive parcel. It's relatively boring. Historically, there were some weeds there, some dilapidated homes, which have been removed or in the process of being removed. And so the application itself, so the project itself would facilitate the development again of a 172-unit apartment complex, and that's largely in 2- and 3-story buildings. The rezone itself only covers a very small portion of the overall site. The site itself is roughly 8.14 acres. The rezone only covers slightly less than 1.5 acres. That is somewhat of an anomaly, and I think that was historically somewhat of a remnant zoning piece that's been carried through the years, including through the adoption of the general plan in 2004. So this is largely a cleanup, making sure that the zoning is consistent with the planned land use designation. This is not real common in our community. Again, it truly is an anomaly. So the application tonight and staff's recommendation is that the council approve the rezone application to allow for the development of the apartment complex. At the last meeting, we discussed the overall design of the apartment complex somewhat of ad nauseum, but for the benefit of the audience, if you can just bear with me extremely quickly. The apartment complex itself, I'll just walk through it really quick. It's going to be gated. It's going to have an access point to Lincoln Avenue. The orange buildings are the 3-story buildings. To give everyone perspective, a 3-story building for an apartment complex would typically generate about 25 dwelling units an acre. Your conventional single-family subdivision, which for the most part pepper our community, are roughly 5 to 6 dwelling units an acre, so that's a little bit more dense than your traditional single family. Your traditional 2-story apartment complexes will range between 12 and 16 dwelling units an acre, so it's going to be a little bit denser than that. And then those buildings highlighted in red are the 2-story buildings. So one of the things that we try to do here is wherever it was closer to single family, we put the 2-story buildings on the interior, or the 3-story buildings, so when you're driving down the street, it doesn't feel overwhelming. Here's some of the building elevations. We think that the buildings themselves are extremely of high quality. The applicant is going to propose some slight modifications to these buildings to really enhance the buildings a little bit more than what's even shown right here. And so I will just walk through these really quickly again for the benefit of the audience. So with that being said, that concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Before I open this to the public, is there anyone from the council has any questions, comments? I'd open this to the public for any comment that the public may have regarding the proposal as set forward. If you go to the podium, state your name
Good afternoon. My name is Beverly Jamison, and I just simply have one question on this, as I know frequently when apartments come into 2 and 3 stories, then what they have are balconies that come out, and I wonder how this is going to affect the duplex areas around there. I mean, that's going to look into their backyards, and I would be concerned about that. And I'd also am curious as to the type of landscaping that will be provided to enhance the apartments themselves, and is there going to be an on-site manager, or to assure that the persons living in there are keeping up the property? Are they abiding by the rules that of the neighborhood?
Thank you very much, and we'll address those as answers here after the remaining number of members of the public may speak.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Mr. Rodriguez, if we could have you speak to that, probably bringing back up the map to include the parking lot.
I'll try to go down the comments in order. The units themselves on the south side of the building, the map that's shown right here is actually oriented 90 degrees to the it would be to the east. So north is actually this way, south being this way. There's some single family homes on the south side of the property line. The vast majority of those are single story. There are a couple of 2-story homes. Early on, as part of our discussions with the applicant, one of the things that we emphasize is that we did not want windows nor balconies overlooking the backyards of the single family homes. So along the south side of the property, there are no balconies or there are no windows on those sides of the buildings, again, trying to ensure some privacy for the single family homeowners. There are some condos to the, so that would be the west side of the property, which is not shown right here, is that there's an old railroad remnant right-of-way line that's not controlled by the applicant. There's some landscaping there. I don't know what that dimension is off the top of my head, but I believe it's about 60 feet. Above and beyond that, there's a 20-foot setback, which is right there, which is highlighted. So from building to building, you're probably looking between 80 and 85 feet, and there will be landscaping there. There will be some balconies here. However, there's going to be very few balconies, again, because the sides of the buildings, which are the vast majority of them, do not have balconies. Rather, the balconies themselves are going to be facing into other units or into the interior spaces. In terms of the number of trees, we've been working with the applicant ad nauseum to make sure that the actual apartment itself or the complex itself is, for the most part, an urban forest. I know that I've been trying to get trees absolutely in every little corner. The applicant a couple of times has said, where in the world am I supposed to be putting everything else at? I have to put in trash cans and parking lots and everything else, and you want more trees. And trees bring a lot of value, both aesthetically. They also help in terms of the microclimate, trying to make sure that we avoid the heat island effect. In terms of safety itself, this apartment complex is gated. So it is going to be a gated complex. The only access point in and out of the complex is going to be on Lincoln Avenue. The gates themselves will be at the end of the long driveway. California state law mandates that all apartment complexes with 16 or more units provide an on-site manager. There will be an on-site manager at this complex at all times. Again, it's going to be gated. It's going to have plenty of parking stalls, 172 units with 367 on-site parking spaces, which comes out to, I'm not great at math, but I think it's a little bit more than 2 spaces per unit, which exceeds our code, about 2.2, I think, per unit. So that's a fairly good number, and again, that exceeds our codes. And I believe I probably just went through all of the highlights. But if I didn't, please ask.
I'm just going to ask one more question. So on the south side, the distance between the building and the property line, given that there are parking stalls facing both north and to the south, along with the minimum distance between the stalls, and then up to the building. So all of the pedestrian ingress egress, we're looking at buildings that are probably 100 feet from the property line.
The buildings from the southern property line to the closest part of the building is 72 feet, 70, 75, I believe that is.
Okay.
75. This northern corner building is a little bit closer, but coupled with the backyards of the properties that are there, those properties for the most part average between 15 and 20 feet, plus the 70, 72 feet on the actual site itself. You're probably very close to, not quite 100, but you're pretty darn close.
Okay. Any other members from the public wish to speak to this? If not, seeing none, close the public part of the hearing, bring it back to the council for
To the mayor,
consideration.
I'll make a motion for staff's recommendation.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much. We shall proceed forward with it.